Welcome to another episode of Humanly Plausible with your hosts, Rolly and Richard from the Pink Collective.
Hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Humanly Plausible. Today, Rolly and I have a very interesting guest, one that I can say I know very, very well.
Another McCulloch takeover.
Another McCulloch, and this one is my
I'm starting to think Richard is doing a takeover of the show now.
Listen, we just happen to have family members that are interesting, and
absolutely.
This is my dad, Bertie McCulloch, and we're going to talk a little bit today about kind of his experiences and some of the things that I think we can all benefit from in terms of.
So we thought it was interesting to have you on the show because, there's the generations and how things have evolved and how, I mean, even for me, I'm just a few years older than Richard because he claims to be like 90 years old when you hear Richard speak. But a lot has changed. And then even in the past 5 years, business has changed and evolved. We went through a pandemic. We've experienced pitching clients over Zoom, which is insane. We've landed clients via Zoom, which is, again, it's crazy. We thought that you with your experience, I think it would be a great conversation.
Yeah. And I think maybe you can introduce yourself to the world, talking a little bit. My dad emigrated from Jamaica in the mid-'60s and somehow got into the corporate world over time. So if you want to just share a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
absolutely.
And it's been an interesting and very rewarding journey, actually. We came here in the 60s, mid-'60s. I have to confess that when we came at first, we had seen America as kind of a workshop. My wife was, Richard's mom, was recruited as a nurse. And I had just finished my final year at the university, having majored in biology and zoology, actually, and chemistry. And the plan was I was going to come here, do graduate work, and go back to a job was already waiting for me there as an instructor, or teacher at the Jamaica College, where I also was a student. But it didn't happen that way.
It never does.
Never does. And we got settled into the life in New York. We liked it.
So from Jamaica to New York?
Yes,
okay.
Directly to New York. We had relatives in New York.
Gotcha.
We always had relatives in the States. My brother lived in Florida most of his life. And so we came, and I didn't go to graduate school right away. I started to look for a way of making some money at first. And my wife was well established in her nursing career here.
I didn't know she was a nurse. I didn't know.
Registered nurse, yeah.
Well, and the job hunting process at the time was very difficult. You took what you got.
No, indeed, no going online.
No,
and this is the Bronx.
This is,
We live, we came, we live in Manhattan at
Manhattan,
first.
okay.
With my sister-in-law.
Wow.
And and we were living right out of near City College. It was a vibrant community and a very, really interesting community of learning and all kinds of things happening there. The Savoy Club and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So the job situation was difficult at first. And then I started careers in my first important job was of course, in Jamaica. Before I left Jamaica, I was a high school teacher. I taught English, and I was a sports master in a boarding school.
That explains a lot.
Yes. And my first real job was a flavor chemist with Shenley Industries. I was in the R&D lab in the Rockefeller Center. and which was New York at its best in Rockefeller Center. So I got a pretty much good exposure into the life of a real New Yorker.
Did you ever ice skate in Rockefeller?
No, I watched but I watched it almost every winter.
Nice. So my dad's saying, that position. So at Trinidad, basically what he did was they made liquor. And
really? Well, it sounded very important.
And I think, but it showed me when he used to tell me about this, how many things go into making liquor because they literally have to taste and do all kinds of testing.
Wait, were you tasting?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
No,
I love it.
We actually had a tasting laboratory.
Yeah.
And we made stuff. At the time I was there, we focused on brandies.
Okay. Nice.
And I had one of the world's, perhaps considered one of the world's best master tasters, Sam Pollock. And he was kind of the owner of the Dubochet line. I don't know if you ever heard of Dubochet and Dubonnet. No. Those were aperitifs.
Yeah. I gotta look it up now.
Yeah,
anyway, so that was a happy job. We tasted a lot.
Yeah.
But tasting is not swallowing.
Drink it, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You
So
just kind of swish it.
Yes.
Yeah, basically.
That's what I tell my wife.
Okay.
I'm a master taster.
And so that was that lasted for close to 2 years, and then they decided to uproot the laboratory and move to Cincinnati. My wife said no way, so that job ended there, and then I got into laboratory medicine. And this was when I went to Technicon. Technicon, you might know or might not know, was that in the 60s, in laboratories and hospitals, they were still doing test tubes to test your glucose and stuff like that. Now, this was a company that revolutionized how labs and tests are done in laboratories and hospitals. This was the first place, this is a company that introduced to the world automated analysis. Usually and that is what when you go into get your blood taken and you get back that sheet with all the test results.
So what year was that roughly?
This was in the late 60s.
Oh, okay.
Late
We're
60s
still there.
Is that right?
Wow.
And this was where it all started.
Wow.
They changed from test tubes to these automated instruments that would now take when you take a sample of your blood, they could spin that down, and 500 microliters of it can give you 40 assays, and the instrument can run 200 tests an
That's
hour.
incredible.
That's where we get
Right.
from where we were. So this was where it all started. I was an instructor in those early days.
Wow.
And that's where I started to get my foot in the New York situation. I was very fortunate that my teaching background brought me into those job situations. And I was later moved into, because of an experience there, somebody saw my work, introduced me to Dr. Kamensky, who was opening up they had come up with this new instrumentation for, it's a laser technology for looking at cells. And back then, cancer research labs were searching for tools to help them in their work, in recognizing certain things in cells. And this company, which was a spin-off of IBM, set up in some part of New York, and they had this tool developed and ready for marketing. And they needed somebody to go out with the salesman, know this, and go into the laboratories and show how to use this to help them count cells. And that was a really exciting job because
Finish that story.
because we got to go into NIH, we got to go into all the leading cancer research labs. I spent a lot of time at Sloan Kettering.
Yeah.
And one of my very revealing and humbling experience was we were with Dr. Malamed at Sloan Kettering, and they were treating cancer patients. And they could not tell for sure whether the medicine was working, whether there was changes taking place. And we brought in this, at the time we called the cytofluorograph. And we were able to take suspensions of the patient's blood and look at their white cells. And they were able to, for the first time, look at how a patient actually, by looking at the patterns of see the patient actually responding to the treatment.
Wow.
It was a very exciting time.
Wow.
So I wanted to ask that. So you decide to go ahead. It seemed like you were on a trajectory where you were doing well, especially coming from the country, you were moving up the ladder. But you still went to school to get your master's. Why did you still feel it was important to get your master's, even though you were already on a trajectory up?
Well, a few things changed. Both the job with the biophysics, which was the cancer research tool, required me to travel a lot. I was all over the country. And this fellow here was just about 6 or 7, giving his mother a lot of trouble. So
Figures.
I had to rethink whether I can be on the road as much. And she had her nursing career and responsibilities. So I was steered in another direction. And the direction was administration, hospital administration, hence the need to go to the graduate school. Get that.
The administrative business part of it.
Absolutely.
So the administration part. What years were that? What segment? Because
that's the last 39 years of my life. Exactly.
So you saw
all
lot.
of that, but all of that front piece.
Yeah.
Prepared me in a very unique way.
That's interesting.
Yeah. To take on what happened for those 39 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the business of medicine was, and you were able to navigate that because you had the practical knowledge of biology and chemistry.
Absolutely.
And then were able to now add the best practices in terms of management.
It's interesting because it was at that time New York City, which ran the municipal hospital system. They had just become a quasi of the state as a hospital corporation. They were no longer the Department of Health or the Department of Hospital. They were a body set up to run 15, 16 hospitals. So they had a corporate structure with a board of directors and a president. And then they had to have this administrative group that was going to handle certain aspects of administering to these 15 hospitals. That's when I was recruited into handling the advisory part of laboratory. And they said, since you are the ones we have closest to radiology, you also have to do radiology. So I had lab and radiology under my area of responsibility.
Wow.
And in that setting, this was the corporate setting. So we were there to provide the leadership and the needs of 15 hospitals. And part of my responsibility was to do contracting for the needs of the hospitals.
Right.
And I focused on supply chain contracting. And that's where my niche into that part of my administrative role was.
So what do you enjoy the most out of that role? I mean, 39 years is a lot of years.
Yeah.
Now, that have to break that out into two segments.
Okay.
The first part, the first 19 years, it was corporate, administrative. There were a lot of problems in some of our individual hospitals,
Yeah.
real problems. So they began to
Oh, that's right.
find how we can fix some of these hospitals by getting people in there who can.
So are we talking politically, infrastructurally? Like, what are we talking about here?
Well, if
All of
it's-
it? All the above?
All of the above.
Okay.
Okay.
We're not going to throw anybody under the bus.
Okay, no. All of the above.
Okay.
And
So everything.
there's a part of me always wanted to go into operations.
Okay.
I thought that was where I could best be effective in setting up systems that make a hospital run
Wow.
in areas. And it's, and I embrace this whole concept of facilitating. And so I got this opportunity to go to one of these hospitals, and that was in having a lot of problems. And the CEO had reached out to me and his assistant, asking me if I would come. And I knew what the problems were.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know that it was as bad as it was until I got
closer.
there.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, I went there, and a lot of my abilities, a lot of my desires of functioning in an atmosphere of where you operate and teach at the same time, I was able to realize that there. And was an associate executive director for about 7 departments. And the important part of all of that was to train young line managers. I saw line managers as the ones who actually make a hospital or any system run. If your line managers aren't strong, capable, learned, and understand how to make things move and make things happen and to facilitate your operation, you're lost. So I focused a lot on and I focused on the fact that while I'm here, yes, you can function, but it was more important for me to focus on the fact that I want this place to run the way it is, whether I'm here or not.
Right.
And so that's how you empower these young people to get them to understand that this is theirs
Yep.
and they are important to the organization.
How,
point.
how important do you think it was that you were a teacher as you became empowered as a leader? How important is being able to teach in terms of leadership?
It's very, very important. I always say to most people that if you're a manager and you're not teaching, you're not going to be effective. And by teaching, I mean not the core information. It's how you solve problems, how you navigate, how you do all of those factors. And during the time in the time when I was in the hospital, one of the things that came into managing was this idea of CQI, continuous quality improvement, that I embraced. Everything going back to that Japanese idea of good change. I think the term is kaizen or something like that. Anyway, but it's
We got to look it up. Research department.
Is the same
report
term
on it.
that that Toyota uses.
That's right.
Right, Toyota uses. And we embrace that whole concept of keeping your organization up to date. That's why when things like computers and things evolve, because those things evolved during my time, right?
A lot of
You have to be ready to embrace that and take the change, and make it work for you.
I remember you telling me the story about when they first introduced computers to the hospital system.
Yes, nurses were were hard to come on board. Very hard. My team were different. They were ready for it.
Right.
They were younger people.
Yeah.
But in our hospitals at the time, most nursing had a difficult time because they were trained to just keep writing stuff, right? And
Now I had to punch keys.
but I think this. I'll tell you this little part because as marketing people, you can relate to that. When the computers come out, one of the areas I had was I ran a print shop, right? And it part of one of them. And so we were responsible for all the papers that were coming in, bringing into the organization. And it was projected that it was be computerized, that my budget on the paper would go down. So when you're preparing your budget for the next year, you sort of projected that my paper would go down. It turned out it was doubling and tripling.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And it just drove everybody crazy. And then you began to look into it. And you found your answer in the waste paper basket.
Right.
That's what was happening.
Waste.
People were, it's not so much the waste, but people were at the computer, but they went and they looked and they saw the information, and then they would print copies and take back with them. And all they do is read it and dump it. You see, so that marketing projection was really
Totally,
wrong.
totally.
Well, my entire career, it's been the same. They've been saying paper is going to disappear.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not till like the past 10 years where the big dip has happened. Where like before, like even in advertising, you would see like a split where there was digital advertising, and that was like maybe 40% of the budget versus 60, which was print magazine. What do you want, some water?
No.
Oh.
I want to share something with you. Like we're talking about this, because one of the
Oh, you came prepared. Yes.
No. The
Go ahead.
time the pandemic had a tremendous effect on everybody. In New York City, it was one of the worst ones, right? In 2 years ago, after they assessed and they made awards to people who had made a difference in how they were able to manage. And one of my managers, right, was given this citation.
Amazing employees, I care in action.
And I highlighted some of the things for you might want to read that they noted about him.
Yeah. So I got it. So this is Mr. Steve
Steve Osias.
Osias serves an assistant coordinating manager as the central receiving manager at the New York
But
Hospital.
don't go
King
through
County.
all of it.
Yeah.
Just see what the ones that are on the
Orchestrates its operations safely and effective daily. Problem solver.
problem solver.
And an irreplaceable member of the supply chain operations. Extremely long hours. So he worked extremely long hours during the pandemic to ensure that all these deliveries were received, stored safely and economically. Warehouse space is minimal, yet Steve was logistically able to transport these items to secure locations. He continues to run an efficient central receiving department. What else? Fulfills its mission to providing quality healthcare in culturally and linguistically diverse patient population. He truly exemplifies their system. I care values of integrity, compassion, accountability, respect, and excellence. Wow.
He wrote me this after he got that.
All right. So we have, good morning, Mr. McCulloch. I pray all is well with you and your family. These difficult times we're living. I could not help sharing the news that I was chosen for an amazing employee here at King's. You were the first person that came to mind when I received the announcement. Wow. And so this is how many years ago that you worked with him? From
this, I left there in 2012.
Okay. So, and this email was from July 2021.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thank you for all the lessons learned and the wealth of wisdom you shared with us here at King's. I always remember you saying to us, take pride and ownership of what you do. That continues to be my motto each day. Thank you. Stay well. Wow.
Ownership. That's the key word in running an operation. If you don't feel you can own this, own what happens to it, if you combine to that, you can facilitate.
Yeah.
And that was part of my mantra, if you will.
Yeah, and it was something that we talk about all the time about being purpose-driven, and the fact that, like, without that, we're all purpose-driven. Yes, everyone is.
Exactly.
And you just can't show up as a robot or a machine. We're not machines.
Exactly.
So this ownership and really owning who you are in your space and in your time, which is invaluable, is a hard thing, especially now in these days. Like the soft skills of what we're facing with folks is a challenge, because back when it was about hard skills and training and development, getting people to do the and to work and process, and now we're seeing the opposite. So the hard skills are there. But the social, the soft skills and the emotional intelligence and just people being invested with their heart and passion is become a challenge these days.
And part of our work is looking and evaluating and hopefully helping to refine internal culture so that it becomes an ownership culture within the organizations that we support, because it's going to affect your outcomes when there is no sense of ownership, investment, because without ownership and investment, there's also no accountability.
Right. Yes. And this is proof of the investment into someone you poured into.
Absolutely.
And that teaching and that and being
so
able to.
we gotta go into this box, because we have taken all this time. And again, we normally we can do this for 3 hours. But I definitely want to get one of these out. So you have to, as our guest, you gotta pick. This is your son's idea, by the way. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Or you can read it for him if you want. Yeah. So you're going to pick one out of the box, and then you're going to read it aloud, and then we're going to hopefully discuss it for a few minutes.
So just pick one out. Yeah. So everyone feels
the
good.
winning one?
They're all winners.
Well, we think. It would be funny if you got a social media one.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It looks like one of Richard's.
That typed it,
yeah.
Can performance marketing thrive without a brand marketing effort?
Wow. Okay,
so contextualize.
So that, in other words, performance marketing is when, sometimes it's called lead generation, when you're just putting a bunch of ads, and hoping that consumers see your ad, click on your ad, and so it's more of a opportunity to have volume in your advertising versus brand, where you're actually building your image and the why you exist, and are able to, not necessarily spend as much money with a bunch of ads, but because your brand proposition is so overwhelming or so engaging that you get quality people to engage with you. So is it about quantity in a sense versus quality, or do you need both to be successful?
There's got to be enough quantity. There's got to be enough. I guess the nuance is going to be how much is enough. It might be based on whether the kind of product you're really.
It's a complex question, but yes. But the thing is funny, because in our conversation, right? So right here, you have, from this gentleman's email, take pride and ownership in what you do. So what we believe as advertisers and the, getting people to harness purpose is that, every company has a story to share. There's a passion and there's a motive and a purpose behind it. This question here is more about do we go out there and tell everybody what we do, or do we go out there and tell people why we do it?
Right.
And what is the value there? And what we believe is that if you do it with the why, then your sustainability in long term is always going to be there. Yeah. Versus what Richard kind of worked a lot in his prior company is that they did a lot of the work of just getting the message out there, and he realized that he knew listen, we should be doing things a little bit better here because we're getting a big crowd of people, right? We're getting this big crowd, but not half of them are sticking. Or if they join, they realize, well, this is not really who I am. Or you could probably shed more light on that, but I that's kind of the way I see it, as 100%. The simplest way.
Yeah.
I have seen. I cringe a lot when I see an ad and I hear what's going on and I read what's going on, and at the end, I don't know who.
Yes. Yeah,
I'm sure you've seen that, and I'm so. Who? What's this? What's the product? What's it?
Those are my kids, my wife. That's all they.
What's it?
They critique.
You're hearing something,
but nothing.
But I can't find what is it that I'm supposed to buy. What is it I'm supposed to?
They've done a poor job.
And it seems to me that somewhere along the line, the brand, the stuff, what you represent has got to be there, and it shouldn't be searched for.
I think another thing, and that's a great point, and that's a lot of times what happens is those commercials are paid over and over again with lack of substance. So you're asking yourself, I see this commercial all the time, but I still don't really understand what they're bringing to the table. And I think that, that's one of the areas in which, when you're looking at brand marketing, it's really putting more effort into communicating the why, communicating the value, communicating its benefits, communicating so much more. Now, you definitely have to have a certain level of frequency of distribution and deployment. And we certainly work, in our case, we work with companies that do digital deployment and traditional deployment, if you will. But yeah, to your point, it's I
have an example.
Okay.
What little can mean so much.
Mm-hmm.
It has to do with him.
Oh boy.
Oh, come on.
He was about 2 years old.
Oh, this is getting good.
And every Saturday we drive down to his auntie's house because he's going to spend the weekend to go to church with her on Sunday. And he's in the back seat, and Emma and I in the front seat, and we're going down, and we're going on the highway, and in the back hear him says, "Esso." And my wife looks at me, and I look at him, and we realize, and she says, "What?" He says, "Esso." And it's and then she says he's ready to read. But the important thing is he was we interpreted that his reading readiness, we got to feed him with something because But where did this ESSO comes from? From the TV. And at 2,
so
that's what I'm talking about. That was all there was.
So he visually connected the audible.
Connected it, right.
It wasn't that well. Yeah, he made her. He
did both connections, visual and
at 2 years
audio,
old.
right.
I was like, was he reading already at 2? But I'm assuming he would.
But he saw it.
But what you're saying is that those commercials were so clear that a 2-year-old captured that and made an association.
Yes,
it's interesting.
That's power.
Yeah.
And I also always wondered whether that's part of your trigger to marketing and advertising.
Ultimately,
I don't know the link.
our belief is that you can't be everything to everybody.
No.
You have an audience that really wants to engage with you. That's only if you're going to be a successful business, and that we know that. Like, okay, if I'm going to create this product, who wants this product? Who is it going to serve?
Precisely.
And so, some people just think that they just want to shove this in everybody's faces, but there's people who might not like water.
Yeah.
And you got to be real to understand that. So therefore, I don't need to convince everyone. I just need to speak to the ones that I know as my audience.
Yeah.
And so when you're clearly identifying these folks, it's easier to advertise that way and then continue the conversation.
And I think, interestingly enough, what you presented today was your brand of leadership. Mm-hmm. Your brand marketing of leadership was one of promoting ownership of the department, of investment, and troubleshooting, and doing all the things that constituted true ownership of the department. Unlike a performance manager who's like, show up every day on time and get it done and you're good.
Great point.
You know what I mean? So in a sense, it's interesting that we did get that question because, you had a brand, and this person he's a brand ambassador of you, because he's actually acknowledging, I worked under your brand and I'm carrying on that brand, and I'm going to continue that, mindset. And instead of people who, work somewhere for 30 years and all they did was pack boxes and did X, Y, and Z, and then they don't walk away really remembering anything.
And it's so easy in certain organizations that they do this routine stuff.
Yeah.
And it's always not easy to sort of engage them.
Mm-hmm.
Hospitals have a better opportunity to, and I don't know how much we harness that. Those who are away from the patient don't feel the impact of what they do.
Right.
And so you have to work, when the farther you are from the patient, you have, and I knew I had an obligation to let the guy who is going to get that supply up to the room. Mm-hmm. And we always talked about, a clinician should not go there and what he needs is not there. Mm. It's something you say to them. We set up a system that says, if it's going low, somebody is going to know and it's going to be replenished. Mm. Because the idea is that he should not be able, or she should not put her hand there, and she shouldn't have to go search for it to find it either. Mm-hmm. It should be a system where he should know where it is, put his hand there, come out with it, run into the ER and do what he has to do.
Yeah.
That's great.
And it's something that you have to do repeatedly and set up systems where that allows you to really make it happen.
And I think also understanding that a less developed sort of mentality or mantra would have it be that what I do is put supplies into different rooms. But the why you do it is I ensure that clinicians are in the best position to save lives. Right. And that's a huge difference than I just stock things.
Exactly. Performance
versus brand.
Then you have a nurse manager on your team, and that nurse manager has responsibility of saying to them, let them know what these things are, how life-saving they are.
Wow.
They understand. You can't be without this because if it's not there.
Right.
So you connect. That's the way, when you're farther away, you need to have that way of connecting them to real life issues. That's why we're their patients.
Right.
And you can lose that farther away you go from the patient.
So no matter what the distance, you create ownership.
Exactly. You have to create that ownership.
All right. So we got to bring it home because now we're way over.
Yes. So I'd like to just say
closing thoughts.
Thanks so much. Yes. I think that we live in the world that we live in today, but it's sometimes important, I think, for you to share, and I'm glad you were able to share kind of your experience and your philosophy, because I realized so much of it I got from you in terms of the way we go about things and why Rolly and I work so well together in terms of empowering positive brands, because it's about purpose.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point that you brought up. I think especially when you work in a multi-layered organization where there's many layers involved, I think it's important that, you know, as leaders of these organizations, that we remember that we always have to connect people to their purpose and let them know that you are not just one little cog. You're a cog part of the bigger picture here, and this is what we're trying to do. And I have worked with some healthcare systems that they're really good at doing that. That, you know, they do big employee retreats to remind all the folks, listen, this is what we're all doing collectively. Right. But without you, we can't be set up to succeed. So it's important that as a reminder to our team is that, and me too, I'm guilty of sometimes, like, I'm so running ahead and trying to get things done that you forget to bring those people along and remind them, hey, listen, we're doing some great stuff. Right. So it's a good reminder to all of us that we can't forget about the team. Because without the team, there's no point. There's no us. So thank you again. I appreciate it. We're definitely going to have you back again. Yeah. Because there's just so much that we can pick into the history. But thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you again for being part of the show. Hope you catch the next one.
See you soon.
See you soon.